Hello and welcome to the video. Once again, my name is Wade Daniel Smith, and this video is about the speed versus power myth of martial arts and combat sports. You're familiar with this. They always have like a speed versus power thing, especially if it's an exhibition where there's somebody of different weight classes, like the Joe Louis versus power contest. Um, that's a complete myth. All right. The person who punches or kicks faster is also hitting harder in the real world. Um, Especially if you're anywhere near the same weight class or even within two or three weight classes of one another. The person who punches faster or kicks faster is in fact hitting harder than the other person. There's no such thing as being stronger and slower at the same time, because in physics, the formula for the power or the energy per second, the energy per unit time of a moving fluid, such as your fist, which is part solid and part fluid, the formula for power of a moving fluid is proportional to to the cube of velocity. So if you punch 10% faster, you actually hit about 31 to 33% harder. All right. So if you're the same weight, if you're the exact same weight. So in order for the bigger person to be stronger than the speedster, who's probably actually moving more than 10% faster, he would have to be punching way harder than the speedster, which is impossible. All right. Because the formula only uses one order of mass, but it uses three orders of velocity. So a smaller fighter is actually punching way harder than a bigger fighter, strangely. But yet, for the past, however long boxing and whatever has been around, there's a myth of speed versus power. And one time, a certain third degree black belt in Shotokan said it right whenever I was discussing this with him briefly. He said speed is power, and he was exactly right. Power is the cube of speed, actually. So the faster puncher and faster kicker is, in fact, hitting way harder than someone that he is only slightly faster than. Um, this is why a woman black belt can kick the shit out of an untrained man, and people don't even realize that, because women are usually faster than men. Whenever I first started training in Isshinryu karate, I think I was 12 years old. All right, I was somewhere. I think I was 12 years old that year. And when I first started training in Isshinryu karate, one of the first things our instructor told us is that by the time you're a blue to light green belt in Isshinryu, which is 6th or 7th kyu, depending on the order that the specific school puts the belts in, not even halfway to black belt by belt rank, and only about a quarter of the way to black belt by total training time. By the time you're a blue belt to light green belt, a woman Isshinryu karate student is expected to be able to win a 1 versus 2 handicap against two adult male rapist attackers in a gang rape situation. And they've actually had them successfully do it in the real world. All right. So that's how they judge whether or not you are a good fighter, is how many unskilled fighters can you beat in a no rules fight, is one metric they use to judge. And the other metric is that on average, you should be able to beat two people in a fight that are 2 or more belt ranks below you. So, for example, dark green belt should be able to beat 2 blue belts working together against them, and first degree brown belt should be able to beat 2 dark green belts working together against them, and third degree brown belt should be able to beat 2 brown belts working together against them. Is how the belt rankings in Isshinryu are supposed to work. That was explained to us then, and it was explained a couple years later when I rejoined a different Isshinryu school, and he explained it the exact same way. That on average, that while there is some variation, and I'm a huge exception, I can beat people 2 or 3 belt ranks above me in fighting. While there are exceptions, such as myself, on average, each belt rank should be able to beat somebody win a handicap match against people 2 or more belt ranks below them. All right. So a blue belt is supposed to be able to kick the tar out of an unskilled, even a woman is supposed to be able to kick the tar out of an unskilled man. If they can't, they haven't learned anything, and they haven't been practicing their basics and their bunkai enough. So I get outraged when I watch supposed professional fighters who don't know stuff that I knew by the time I was a yellow belt. All right, including submissions, including striking techniques, and all sorts of stuff. And yellow belt is the first belt above white belt in Isshin-ryu karate, by the way. I get absolutely outraged when I watch UFC, and I'm even more outraged when I watch stuff like Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and Joe Louis and Bill Wallace that that, that they're fakes. That what they do does not work in a real fight. Like I told Bill Wallace on his own, the person that posted a teaching video by Bill Wallace from 11 or 12 years ago on YouTube. I told them, I said head kicks do not work in a real street fight. They're not even supposed to work in a kickboxing fight. All right. I told him, I said, you try that against me, and half a second later, I'll have you in the figure 4 ankle lock. I'll have you tapping out and squalling like a baby if you try that against me. Much less the fact that even if you ban submissions, I'll just block your high kick or step into it and punch you in the face and jam you at the knee. When you throw your high round kick, I'm going to step in and jam you at your thigh and knee, and I'm going to chop block your thigh and cripple your leg with one hand and punch you in the face with the other hand. And believe me, I know where to hit you in your thigh that will cripple your leg for at least a good 10 seconds. Your knees will buckle and you're going to hit the deck by the time I cripple your leg and punch you in the face with the other hand. High kicks do not work against real black belts. That is Hollywood nonsense. Even when they work in MMA, they're not supposed to work. Usually what happens there is the other guy ends up off balance and gets kicked in the face because his face is down by his waist. They hardly ever land a high kick on one another, and even when they do, it's the other guy's fault for dropping his guard. It's not supposed to work against a real brown or black belt level fighter. I've literally never been kicked in the head because nobody could do it. I've hardly ever been punched in the head because nobody could do it. Because it takes a 3 or 4 punch combination before you're going to come close to hitting me in the head. And while you're trying to hit me in the head, I'm going to kick your guts out, or I'm going to catch one of your hands and tie you up and put you in a wrist lock. Or both, by the way. I know because I used to do it to the second and should have been third degree black belts, even in handicap matches. Because Sensei got to where he had to start giving the other students melee weapons such as Eskrima sticks and Okinawan bows and telling them to attack me with me having no weapon, and I could disarm them. Because I was his best student, even though I wasn't his highest ranked student yet. In a real fight, I could beat the living snot out of anybody in there except him. Because whenever I sparred him, he still beat me. Like I told somebody on one video the other day, I said my little sister could have beat Bruce Lee in a fight, and I toyed with her every time I sparred her. But she dropped a 300-pound man one time that was harassing her. She dropped him in one hit. Bam. Punched him, and he hit the deck and cried like a baby from one punch. And she wouldn't but 115 pounds at the time. He cried like a baby and later said that he had never been hit by another man that hard. That those people are frauds. You don't become the world champion of a one-on-one sport with only 18 games or 18 fights, and much less when you have 3 losses. That is fraud. That's not a real sport. Just to rank up, like if you take tennis, which is a one-on-one sport, just to rank up in something like tennis takes thousands of games. To rank up in a video game takes tens of thousands of games to get into the top 10. Because there's that many people in the world. There are 8 billion people in the world. to rank up to number 1 in a one-on sport is not possible in 18 fights. Unless you're lying about who you fought and just made up some bullshit and faked your rank.